Hi everyone, today we are doing a lifting thread treatment for this patient. Her main area of concern is her marionette line, and we also opted to do one down to her jowl as well. We have been doing jawline filler with this patient and we've achieved really good results, but she wanted to add a little bit more filler and I decided that I wanted to go in and try to lift her prior to doing this. The reason why we didn't go right for a lift is because she does have denser tissue. So sometimes we don't always achieve the max lift that we can just because it is really hard to lift denser tissue. But we, did her jawline and then we decided that it wouldn't hurt just to do some threads to get a lift. Just make sure your patient has realistic expectations when going in with this treatment. But we will be going back in with a little bit of filler for her jawline after she heals from this treatment here. Worst case scenario, she is still going to be able to stimulate collagen from this treatment and from those threads. So no matter what, she's still going to get a benefit. It just might not be as dramatic of a lift as we would get with someone with a little bit more mature or thinner tissue. So as you can see here, I am going in with my cannula and I am making my vectors. Like I said, she has nice, young, collagen dense tissue. So it is a little bit harder to kind of navigate your cannula through this tissue, but it is possible here. And if you do get stuck at all, you can always give a little bit of lidocaine. The fluid will just kind of help you break through that tissue. But I went ahead and I did the same thing for all of my vectors, and I placed a nice thread of 2% lidocaine in my track, just for local anesthesia prior to going in with my thread. So we chose 17 gauge because, like I said, she does have, young, dense tissue. So I wanted to get the best lift possible. So I chose the heaviest thread. But we are just going to go in. We're going to go all the way past her deficit or her area that we are looking to lift, which would be her marionette line here. So all the way past that area of animation in order to reduce the risk of having any sort of thread visibility after this treatment. You either want to stop before the area of animation or after, just to prevent when that patient is smiling from being able to see the end of that thread. So once I'm at the end and I like my depth, I go ahead and remove my end cap to make sure my thread engages as I'm coming out. And I give that tissue a nice pull back as I am coming out just to make sure those barbs are engaging. It looks really uncomfortable, but I promise that the patient is, numb with lidocaine. So she is relatively comfortable. The most they feel is just some pressure of the pushing on their skin. So now I'm going in with my second down to her marionette line, and I'm going to follow that same process all the way past that area of animation. And you can kind of see under her skin right there where that cannula is. One more push here just to make sure that I'm all the way past that area, and then we're going to go ahead and remove. The area that we're probably going to be going back in with a little bit of filler is just that kind of pre-jowl sulcus area right after her chin. That's the area of most concern for her. So I just wanted to try to lift that marionette as much as possible. This is going to reduce the amount of filler that I'm going to need in that area because we're kind of putting that tissue back to where we want it to go. So there's going to be less of a deficit in order to use a little bit less filler. And like I said, no matter what kind of lift we get from this treatment, for her, we're still going to be able to stimulate collagen and help prevent any further fall of her tissue in the future as well. So again, just checking my depth here. That X that I have marked is the patient's antegonial notch. For lifting threads, we are always above any major vasculature or nerves, but I still like to be aware of where that is. Worst case scenario, you will give them a huge hematoma, but obviously we want to avoid that, but there is no risk of vascular occlusion or anything like that when it comes to lifting threads. We are also doing a vector along her jawline for some collagen stimulation, as well as just to help lift that marionette a little bit more. So going in with my 18 gauge pilot hole here, I like to make sure I like my depth right off the bat. This is going to make your life so much easier when you're going in with your cannula to make your track for your thread. As soon as you're going in with that pilot hole, you want to be at the correct depth, and then your cannula will kind of just fall into place. As you can see, my cannula just popped right in, and I like my depth, so I'm just going to make my way forward and place some 2% lidocaine in this track as well, just for comfort for her. I don't do any more than about 0.5. I even try to use a little bit less in my tracks. As you can see on those threads that are hanging out on the top there's little barbs, little molded barbs on these Arte threads. And the more fluid that's in that tract, the harder it's going to be for those barbs to catch and engage on that tissue. So I obviously want my patient to be as comfortable as possible, but I also want to make sure we're getting a good lift as well. It is a little pinchy by the mouth. You saw her flinch a little bit. Again, it's, nothing excruciating, but it is a little bit uncomfortable and they do feel some pressure. But here we are just removing that cannula, and now we have one side completed. I like to go in with either a gauze or an alcohol, sometimes even some arnica gel to help smooth and engage those barbs. So as you can see, there's like a little pucker right there in her mid-cheek area. You just want to kind of go over that. The threads are bi-directional. So just going over that, I like to use my thumbs, will just help pop that into place. Finishing up here, I just like to wipe over those initial insertion sites with an alcohol wipe, just prior to putting on a Band-Aid, make sure everything is nice and clean. And I inform my patient to leave those Band-Aids on for the rest of the day. They can take them off before they go to bed that evening, but I just like to make sure that the sites are covered as they go about the rest of their day.